The carpet burned against Simone's knees as Jerome's hand pressed harder on her shoulder, forcing her down. She could feel Britney's eyes on her, could hear the woman's barely contained laughter from the leather couch that Simone had picked out 3 years ago when they'd first moved into this house. The same couch where she'd apparently been sleeping with Simone's husband for the past 8 months. "I said beg," Jerome repeated, his voice cold in a way she'd never heard before. This wasn't the man who'd promised to love her forever 6 years ago. This wasn't the man who'd held her when her mother died. This was a stranger wearing her husband's face. Simone's hands shook as she pressed them against her thighs, trying to maintain some dignity even in this position. "Jerome, please. We can talk about this like adults. You don't have to. You're in no position to tell me what I have to do," he cut her off sharply. "You're going to kneel there and you're going to beg me for a fair divorce settlement, or I'm going to make sure you walk away from this marriage with absolutely nothing. Do you understand me?" Britney shifted on the couch, crossing her long legs. She wore a silk blouse that Simone recognized. She'd bought it for herself last month but never had the chance to wear it. "Jerome, baby, is this really necessary? She looks pathetic enough already." The casual cruelty in her voice made something crack inside Simone's chest. This woman had been in her home, wearing her clothes, sleeping in her bed, and now sat there like she owned the place. "It's necessary," Jerome said, not even looking at Britney. His eyes stayed fixed on Simone with something like satisfaction. "I need her to understand how things are going to work from now on. She signed that post-nup agreement 5 years ago, remember? The one that says if the marriage ends she gets $50,000 and that's it. Everything else is mine." Simone's mind raced back to that document. She'd been so sick with the flu, barely able to think straight, and Jerome had presented it as just a formality that his lawyer insisted on. She'd signed it without reading it properly, trusting him completely. "That's not legal," Simone whispered, though even she could hear the doubt in her voice. "You can't just." "Can't I?" Jerome's smile was sharp. "You're a housewife, Simone. You haven't worked in 6 years. You have no money of your own, no career, no prospects. I've supported you all this time. The house is in my name. The cars are in my name. The bank accounts are in my name. You have nothing except what I choose to give you." He wasn't wrong. Simone had left her job as a junior accountant when they got married because Jerome insisted he made enough for both of them. He'd encouraged her to focus on their home, on building a life together. She trusted him. She'd been so stupid. "Now," Jerome continued, his voice dropping to something almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. "You're going to beg me nicely to give you the $50,000. You're going to thank me for being generous. And then you're going to sign the divorce papers and walk away quietly. No lawyers. No drama. No trying to take what's mine." Britney laughed outright now. "I told you she'd cave. Look at her, she can't even afford a lawyer. What's she going to do?" Simone's vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Her knees ached. Her heart felt like it was being crushed in her chest. She'd given this man 6 years of her life. She'd given up her career, her independence, her friends who'd warned her he was controlling. She'd given him everything. And now he wanted her to beg. "Say it," Jerome demanded. "Say, please, Jerome, give me the settlement money." Simone's mouth opened. She could feel the words forming, could feel herself breaking under the weight of her helplessness. This was it. This was how her marriage ended, on her knees, begging the man who'd betrayed her for scraps. Her phone rang. The sound cut through the tension like a knife. All 3 of them froze. Simone's phone sat on the coffee table where she'd left it, the screen lighting up with an unknown number. The ringtone seemed impossibly loud in the silent room. "Ignore it," Jerome snapped. But something made Simone move. Maybe it was desperation. Maybe it was the tiny spark of defiance that refused to die even now. She reached for the phone. Jerome grabbed her wrist, his fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "I said ignore it." "It might be important," Simone heard herself say. Her voice sounded strange, distant. "Nothing's more important than this conversation," Jerome growled. The phone kept ringing. On the 5th ring, Simone wrenched her arm free with a strength she didn't know she had and grabbed it. She answered without looking at the screen. "Hello?" There was a pause on the other end. Then a voice she hadn't heard in 5 years, a voice that made her entire body go rigid with shock. "Simone? Baby girl, is that really you?" Her father. Simone's hand flew to her mouth. Robert Mitchell. The man she'd cut out of her life when she married Jerome, the man who'd told her she was making a mistake, the man who'd said Jerome only wanted her money and connections, the man who'd been right about everything. "Dad." The word came out as barely a whisper. Jerome's face changed. She saw the color drain from his cheeks, saw the sudden uncertainty in his eyes. He knew about her father, knew they'd been estranged, but he'd always assumed the old man had disowned her completely. "I've been looking for you for 3 years, her father said, his voice rough with emotion. "You changed your number, moved, disappeared completely. But I never stopped searching. I need to see you, Simone. I need to talk to you. Please." Simone looked up at Jerome, at Britney, at the home that had become a prison. "I don't know if—" "Are you safe?" her father asked suddenly, sharply. "Simone, are you in trouble? Tell me where you are right now." Something in his commanding tone, the tone of a man who'd built an empire from nothing, straightened Simone's spine. She was still on her knees, but suddenly she didn't feel quite so small. "I'm at home," she said carefully. "With Jerome." The silence on the other end was heavy. "The man you married against my advice." "Yes." "The man who made you cut contact with your family." "That's not—" Simone started to defend Jerome automatically, then stopped. Because it was true, wasn't it? Jerome had isolated her systematically. First it was, "Your father doesn't approve of us, it's too stressful to deal with him." Then it was, "Your friends don't understand our relationship." Then it was, "You don't need to work, you should focus on our home." "Simone," her father said quietly, "I'm going to ask you something and I need you to be honest with me. Do you need help?" She looked at Jerome's face, at the panic starting to creep into his expression. She looked at Britney, sitting in her house wearing her clothes. She looked at her knees, still pressed against the carpet, at the position she'd been forced into. "Yes," Simone whispered. "Yes, I need help. Give me your address. I'm sending someone to get you right now. Don't hang up this phone." Jerome lunged forward, trying to grab the phone from her hand. "You don't need anyone to get you. We're in the middle of—" "Simone." Her father's voice sharpened. "What's happening?" "He's trying to take the phone," Simone said, standing up for the first time. Her legs shook but held. "He and his girlfriend have been trying to force me to sign divorce papers. To beg for—" "His girlfriend?" The ice in her father's voice could have frozen hell. "He's been unfaithful?" "For 8 months. Dad, I'm sorry. You were right. About everything. I should have listened." "No apologies," her father cut her off. "Not now. Right now you're going to walk out of that house. You're going to go to the nearest coffee shop or restaurant, somewhere public, and you're going to wait for my driver. His name is Patrick and he drives a black Mercedes. He'll be there in 15 minutes. "I don't have any money," Simone admitted, humiliation burning through her. "Jerome controls all the accounts." She heard her father take a deep breath, heard him collecting himself. When he spoke again, his voice was absolutely calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. "You don't need money, baby girl. You never did. You're Robert Mitchell's daughter. You're my heir. You own 20% of Mitchell Enterprises and everything that comes with it. Did you really think I'd cut you off completely just because you married an idiot?" The world seemed to tilt sideways. Simone grabbed the back of the chair to steady herself. "What?" It was Jerome who spoke, his voice strangled. "You're still on my will, Simone," her father continued, speaking only to her. "You've always been on my will. When your mother died and you cut contact, I respected your space, but I never stopped protecting you. There's a trust fund that's been growing for 6 years. There are properties in your name. There are investments. You are not helpless, and you are not poor, and you are certainly not going to beg anyone for anything. Do you understand me?" Simone couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. For 6 years she'd thought she was alone. For 6 years she'd thought she'd burned every bridge. "Now walk out of that house," her father commanded gently. "Walk out and don't look back. I've got you, baby girl. I've always got you." Simone looked at Jerome. Really looked at him. Saw the greed in his eyes, the calculation, the sudden terror that his meal ticket was slipping away. "You're lying," Jerome said desperately. "Your father disowned you. You told me." "I told you we weren't speaking," Simone corrected, her voice steadier than it had been all day. "You assumed the rest." She walked toward the door on shaking legs. Britney jumped up from the couch. "You can't just leave. We're not done here." Simone paused at the door, turned back. "Yes, we are. We're very done." "Simone." Jerome's voice cracked. "Be reasonable. We can work this out. You can't just—" But she was already gone, walking out into the late afternoon sun with her father's voice still in her ear, telling her exactly where to go, exactly how to be safe, exactly how to start fighting back. The humiliation wasn't over, but for the first time in 6 years, Simone wasn't alone. And for the first time in 8 months she had hope. Simone sat in a corner booth at the coffee shop 3 blocks from the house she just abandoned, her father's voice still steady in her ear. Through the window she could see the street, watching for the black Mercedes. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Are you somewhere safe?" her father asked for the 3rd time. "Yes. I'm at Corner Brew Coffee. There are people here." Simone wrapped her free arm around herself, suddenly cold despite the warm day. "Dad, I don't understand. You said I own part of Mitchell Enterprises?" 20%, her father confirmed. "It was supposed to be your inheritance when you turned 30, but I moved the timeline up after you got married. I wanted you to have security even if you wouldn't talk to me. But that's worth." Simone couldn't even finish the sentence. Mitchell Enterprises was a massive real estate development company. She'd Googled her father once 2 years ago in a moment of weakness. The company was valued at over $2 billion. "Approximately $400 million, yes," her father said calmly. "Plus the trust fund your mother left you, which has been managed by my financial team. That's another $30 million. Plus the properties I put in your name, the penthouse in Manhattan, the beach house in California, the cottage in Vermont. Plus your investment portfolio, which has performed quite well." Simone's vision swam. "I'm going to be sick. Breathe, baby girl. I know this is a lot. A lot." Simone laughed and it came out slightly hysterical. "Dad, I was just on my knees being forced to beg for $50,000. I thought I had nothing. I thought." Her voice broke. The barista behind the counter glanced over with concern, and Simone tried to smile reassuringly, but she wasn't sure she managed it. "That man you married," her father said, his voice hard now. "He knew, didn't he? He knew who I was when he pursued you." Simone thought back 6 years. She'd met Jerome at a charity gala she'd attended with her father, just 2 months before her mother died. Jerome had been charming, attentive, interested in her rather than her father's money, or so she'd thought. After her mother's death, when her grief had been overwhelming and her relationship with her father strained by his workaholic ways, Jerome had been there. Supportive. Understanding. He'd suggested she needed space from her father to heal. He'd encouraged her to establish independence. He'd made cutting contact seem like self-care rather than isolation. "Oh my God," Simone whispered. "He played me from the beginning. I suspected as much. That's why I objected to the marriage. But you were grieving and I handled it badly. I gave you an ultimatum instead of supporting you. That's my fault." "No, Dad. I made my choices. I was so angry at you for not being there when Mom was sick, for always working, and Jerome seemed so different." "He seemed available," her father finished. "He had time for you because he didn't have a real career. He had attention for you because you were his career. Am I close?" Simone closed her eyes. Very close. A black Mercedes pulled up outside the coffee shop. A man in a professional suit stepped out, tall, broad-shouldered, with graying hair and kind eyes. He looked directly at the window at Simone and nodded once. "Patrick's here," Simone said. "Good. He's going to bring you to my office. We have a lot to discuss and I think we should do it face to face. Is that all right?" "Yes." Simone stood, her legs still unsteady. "Dad? Thank you. For not giving up on me." "Never," her father said simply. "You're my daughter. I'd never give up on you. Now come see me. We have work to do." The drive to Mitchell Enterprises headquarters took 40 minutes. Simone spent them in silence, watching the city change from suburban neighborhoods to the downtown business district. Patrick didn't try to make conversation, seeming to sense she needed time to think. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Jerome. She declined each call without reading his messages. Whatever he had to say, she didn't care anymore. Mitchell Enterprises occupied the top 15 floors of the Crawford Tower, a gleaming structure of glass and steel that Simone had seen 1,000 times but never connected to her father. The lobby was all polished marble and modern art. People in expensive suits moved with purpose through the space. Patrick led her to a private elevator that required a keycard. They rode up in silence, and Simone caught her reflection in the mirrored walls. She looked terrible, eyes red, hair messy, still wearing the old jeans and t-shirt she put on that morning when life was different. The elevator opened directly into a reception area unlike anything Simone had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The furniture was elegant but comfortable. A woman in her 50s with perfectly styled gray hair stood as they entered. "Ms. Mitchell," she said warmly. "It's wonderful to finally meet you. I'm Helen, your father's executive assistant. He's waiting for you in his office." Ms. Mitchell. Not Miss Palmer, Jerome's last name that she'd taken. The name felt right in a way nothing had felt right in years. Her father's office was through double doors. Robert Mitchell stood as she entered, and Simone felt her composure crack completely. He looked older than she remembered, more gray in his hair, more lines around his eyes. But his expression when he saw her was pure relief and love. "Dad?" she managed before she started crying. He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into a hug that felt like safety itself. Simone sobbed into his shoulder while he held her, one hand stroking her hair like he used to when she was little. "I'm so sorry," she choked out. "I'm so sorry for everything. For cutting you out, for not listening, for being so stupid." "Stop," her father said firmly. "You're not stupid. You were grieving and you were manipulated by someone who saw your vulnerability. That's not your fault." He led her to a leather couch by the windows and sat beside her, keeping one arm around her shoulders. Simone tried to collect herself, wiping at her face with her hands. "Here." Her father handed her a box of tissues from the coffee table. "Take your time." Simone cleaned herself up as best she could, then looked at him properly. "You look tired. I've been worried about you for 3 years. Ever since you changed your number and moved without telling me where. I had investigators searching, but you'd covered your tracks well. Jerome insisted on it. He said we needed a fresh start, away from my old life." Simone shook her head. "I can't believe I didn't see it." "Abusers are good at hiding their true nature," her father said quietly. "And they're experts at making their victims feel like everything is their fault." "Has he been hurting you physically?" "No. Just financially. Emotionally. He controlled all the money, made all the decisions. I had to ask permission to buy anything over $20. He checked my phone, my email. I thought it was because he loved me, because he wanted us to be a team." Her father's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "And the woman? Britney? She works with him." "Worked with him? He got fired 3 weeks ago for poor performance, but he didn't tell me. I found out today when I discovered the affair. She's been coming to our house when I visit the library or do volunteer work. They've been sleeping in our bed." "I see." Her father stood and walked to his desk, pressing a button on his phone. "Helen, can you send in Daniel and the team?" Within minutes, 3 people entered the office, 2 men and a woman, all carrying tablets and briefcases. They looked expensive and competent. "Simone, this is Daniel Reeves, my head of legal. That's Patricia Wong, my financial crimes specialist, and Thomas Grant, my private investigator. They're going to help you." Daniel, a sharp-eyed man in his 40s, sat across from Simone with a kind smile. "Ms. Mitchell, I'm sorry for what you're going through. But I want you to know that we're going to handle everything. First, can you tell me about this postnuptial agreement your husband mentioned?" Simone explained the document, the circumstances under which she'd signed it. Daniel's expression grew darker. "That agreement is invalid," he said flatly. "You signed it while ill, under duress, without independent legal counsel. No judge would uphold it. And that's before we get into the fraud." "What fraud?" Simone asked. Patricia leaned forward, her expression serious. "Ms. Mitchell, we've been monitoring your financial situation since we located you 3 days ago. Your husband has been systematically stealing from your personal trust account. The one you didn't know you had." Simone's stomach dropped. "How much?" "Over the past 6 years? Approximately $800,000. He's been transferring small amounts monthly, enough to go unnoticed in a large account, but adding up to substantial theft over time." "He had access to my accounts?" Simone's voice came out as a whisper. "You signed a power of attorney document when you got married," Patricia explained. "It gave him limited access for household management purposes. He's been abusing that access significantly." Thomas, the investigator, spoke up. "We also have evidence of him funneling money to Britney Lawson. He's rented an apartment for her, bought her a car, paid for numerous trips and luxury items. All using money stolen from you." Simone couldn't process it. $800,000. Her money. Money she hadn't even known existed. "What do I do?" she asked, looking at her father. "We're going to file for divorce with a proper legal team," Daniel said. "We're going to freeze all accounts he has access to. We're going to file criminal charges for fraud and theft. And we're going to make sure you get everything you're entitled to, which, given the circumstances, will be substantial." "I don't want anything from him," Simone said quickly. "I just want out." "You're entitled to half the marital assets," Daniel explained. "Plus restitution for what he stole. Plus damages for financial abuse. We're talking about several $1,000,000 once everything is calculated." "Several million?" Simone felt dizzy again. But he said he had nothing. That everything was his. He lied, her father said simply. Jerome Palmer has assets of approximately $3 million. The house, investment accounts, retirement funds. Half of that is yours by law. Plus the $800,000 he stole. Plus punitive damages. Simone tried to wrap her mind around it. He's going to fight this. Let him, Daniel said with a slight smile. We have more resources, better lawyers, and the evidence is overwhelming. He can fight all he wants. He won't win. Her phone buzzed again. Jerome. She looked at the screen and Daniel held out his hand. May I? Simone handed him the phone. He read the messages, his expression unchanging, then showed them to Patricia. He's threatening you, Patricia said. Saying he'll destroy your reputation, claim you were unstable, that you abandoned him. This is going to help our case significantly. How can threats help us? Because they demonstrate consciousness of guilt, Daniel explained. Innocent people don't threaten and intimidate. They try to work things out reasonably. His reaction proves he knows exactly what he's done wrong. Her father sat beside her again. Simone, I know this is overwhelming. But I need you to understand something. You're not that woman who was on her knees a few hours ago. You're Robert Mitchell's daughter. You're a businesswoman whether you know it yet or not. You're strong and you're smart and you're going to get through this. I don't feel strong, Simone admitted. That's all right. You don't have to feel it yet. But you are. You left that house. You answered my call. You're here now. That took strength. Simone looked around the office at the team assembled to help her, at her father's confident expression. For 6 years she'd felt powerless. For 6 years she'd believed she needed Jerome to survive. She'd been so wrong. What's the first step? She asked. Daniel smiled. The first step is we serve him with divorce papers tomorrow morning. Professional, thorough, and completely overwhelming. We're going to show Jerome Palmer exactly who he tried to destroy. And while he's dealing with that, her father added, you're going to start learning about your inheritance. About the businesses, the properties, the investments. You're going to start building the life you deserve. Simone nodded slowly. She wasn't ready. She wasn't prepared. She barely understood what was happening. But for the first time in years she had hope. And she had help. And she had power she'd never known existed. Jerome had forced her to kneel. She was about to teach him that was the biggest mistake of his life. The next morning, Simone woke up in a penthouse apartment she owned but had never seen before. The bedroom was larger than the entire first floor of the house she'd shared with Jerome, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked Central Park. The bed was so comfortable she'd slept for 10 hours straight, the first peaceful sleep she'd had in months. Her father had brought her here last night after their meeting, had shown her through the 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom space with its modern kitchen, elegant living room and private terrace. Everything was already furnished, already stocked with basics, already waiting for her. Your mother picked this place out, he told her quietly. 2 years before she died. She said it would be yours someday when you needed your own space. I've kept it maintained, kept it ready. Simone had cried again then, standing in the apartment her mother had chosen for her, feeling her presence in every carefully selected detail. Now in the morning light she explored more thoroughly. The closets were empty except for a few basics Helen had apparently arranged to be delivered. Jeans, shirts, a simple dress, all in her size. The bathroom had fresh towels, new toiletries, everything she needed to start fresh. Her phone sat on the nightstand where she'd left it, and she picked it up reluctantly. 23 missed calls from Jerome. 15 text messages. She opened them against her better judgment. Where are you? We need to talk. Simone, this is ridiculous. Come home. I know you're upset but you're overreacting. You can't just leave. We're married. Your father is manipulating you. He never cared about you. Fine, be that way. But you'll regret this. You think you're so smart? You have nothing without me. I made you. You were nothing when I met you. Come back and we can work this out. I'll forgive you for running off. I'm willing to give you another chance if you apologize. The progression from manipulation to anger to false generosity would have worked on her yesterday. Today, reading them with clear eyes and her father's legal team on speed dial, they just seemed pathetic. There was also a message from an unknown number. Ms. Mitchell, this is Daniel Reeves. Jerome Palmer was served with divorce papers at 8:47 a.m. this morning at his residence. The process server reports he became extremely agitated. We've also served him with notice of the criminal fraud investigation. Please don't respond to any of his attempts to contact you. Let us handle all communication. Your father has arranged for a car to pick you up at 10 a.m. to bring you to the office for orientation. Daniel. Simone checked the time. 9:15. She had 45 minutes to shower and make herself presentable for whatever orientation meant. The shower in the master bathroom was incredible, with multiple heads and steam features she didn't know how to use. Simone stood under the hot water for a long time, letting it wash away the last 6 years, the last 24 hours, all the dirt and hurt and humiliation. When she emerged, she found a note on the kitchen counter in her father's handwriting. "Baby girl, help yourself to anything in the kitchen. The building has a doorman, Gregory, and concierge, Susan, who know who you are. They'll help with anything you need. You're safe here. You're home. Dad. Safe. Home." 2 words she hadn't felt in so long. Patrick arrived exactly at 10, and the drive to Mitchell Enterprises was becoming familiar already. This time Simone felt more alert, more present. She noticed the details, the quality of the car's interior, the professional way Patrick navigated traffic, the respect he showed her. "Ms. Mitchell," he said as they pulled up to the building, "it's an honor to work for you. Your father has spoken about you often over the years. He's very proud of you." "Thank you, Patrick," Simone managed, touched by his sincerity. Helen was waiting in the reception area with a warm smile and a coffee in a real ceramic mug. "Good morning, Simone. Your father is in a meeting, but he'll join us shortly. Today we're going to give you a full overview of your holdings and introduce you to the team that manages them." The conference room Helen led her to had a long table surrounded by comfortable chairs, and one wall was entirely covered with screens showing various data and charts. 6 people stood as Simone entered, all looking professional and welcoming. "Everyone, this is Simone Mitchell," Helen announced. "Simone, this is your financial team." For the next 2 hours, Simone's head spun with information. There was Gregory Chin, her financial advisor, who walked her through investment portfolios worth tens of millions. There was Amanda Pierce, the property manager who oversaw her real estate holdings. Not just the penthouse and the houses her father had mentioned, but commercial properties, land investments, and development projects. There was Marcus. "Wait," Simone interrupted, catching herself. "I'm sorry, could you repeat your name?" The young man smiled. "Richard Okoye. I manage your stake in Mitchell Enterprises and handle board communications." "Right, Richard. Not Marcus." Simone made a mental note and tried to focus. Richard explained that as a 20% stakeholder, she had significant voting power in company decisions. She had the right to attend board meetings, to review financial reports, to participate in strategic planning. Her father held 40% of the company, and the remaining 40% was distributed among various investors. "Together, you and your father control 60% of Mitchell Enterprises," Richard explained. "That's a controlling stake. Any major decisions require your approval." "But I don't know anything about real estate development," Simone protested. "You'll learn," her father said from the doorway. He'd slipped in during Richard's presentation and now stood watching with obvious pride. "You have a degree in accounting, which gives you a strong foundation. And you have good instincts, you just haven't had the chance to use them." "Dad, this is too much. I can't possibly." "You can," he interrupted gently. "And you will. But we're not expecting you to master everything overnight. Take your time. Ask questions. Learn. This is your birthright, Simone. Your mother and I built this together, and it's meant to be yours." Patricia Wong joined them before lunch, bringing news about the criminal investigation. She spread documents across the conference table, each one representing another piece of Jerome's theft. "We've traced the money," she said. $847,000, to be exact, transferred from your trust account over 72 months. He was very methodical, never more than $15,000 in any single month, always disguised as legitimate expenses. Simone looked at the spreadsheets, seeing her own signature on authorization forms she didn't remember signing. "How did he get me to authorize these?" "He didn't. These signatures are forged. We've had a handwriting expert analyze them, and they're not your writing. He had power of attorney to make transfers, but he needed your signature for anything over $5,000. So he forged it." "That's a federal crime," Daniel added, joining the meeting. "Wire fraud, identity theft, and forgery. Each one carries significant prison time." "Prison?" Simone's voice came out small. "The district attorney is very interested in this case," Daniel explained. "High-value white-collar crime, clear evidence, sympathetic victim. They want to prosecute. The question is whether you want to press charges." Simone looked at the documents, at the careful record of Jerome's systematic theft. For 6 years, while he'd controlled her every move and told her she was lucky to have him, he'd been stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars. Money that could have given her freedom. Money that could have let her leave years ago. Yes, she said clearly. I want to press charges. Her father nodded with approval. Patricia made a note on her tablet. There's one more thing, Thomas Grant said, entering the room with his laptop. The investigator. I've been looking into Britney Lawson. She's got quite a history. He turned his laptop screen to show a series of documents. She's been married twice before. Both times to wealthy men. Both times she had affairs with their business associates. Both times she walked away with substantial divorce settlements. She's a professional, Simone said slowly, understanding. This is what she does. Exactly. And Jerome was the perfect mark. Access to what he thought was unlimited money through you, desperate to impress her, not smart enough to see he was being used. Does he know? Simone asked. About her history? Doubtful. She's good at reinventing herself. Different last names, different cities, covered tracks. But we're very good at uncovering secrets. Thomas smiled slightly. I've already shared this information with Brittany's current husband. Yes, she's still married. He's filing for divorce as we speak. Simone should have felt satisfaction at that news. Instead, she just felt tired. These people had taken so much from her: time, trust, peace of mind. She didn't want to think about them anymore. Can we talk about something else? She asked. Something that's not about Jerome or the divorce or any of it? Her father understood immediately. Of course. How would you like to see what Mitchell Enterprises actually does? I've got a development site about to break ground. We could drive out there, I could show you the plans. For the first time all day, Simone smiled genuinely. I'd like that. They spent the afternoon at the development site, a 20-acre parcel on the edge of the city that would become a mixed-use community: apartments, retail spaces, parks, and community centers. Her father explained the vision, the architectural plans, the environmental considerations, the profit projections. This is what I love about this business, he said, standing on the empty land with blueprints in hand. We're not just building buildings. We're creating communities, places where people will live and work and build their lives. Simone studied the plans, her accounting mind automatically picking out the financial details, the cost-benefit analyses, the long-term revenue streams. This is a 15-year project. At least, maybe 20. But when it's done, it'll house 5,000 people and employ another 3,000. That's impact, Simone. That's legacy. Mom would have loved this, Simone said quietly. She did. This was one of her last projects. She picked the location, approved the initial designs. She said it would be our gift to the city. He paused. She also said you'd finish it someday. That you'd see it through. Simone looked at the empty land, trying to imagine the community her mother had envisioned. I don't know if I can do that. You don't have to decide today. But the option is there. Her father put an arm around her shoulders. Everything is there, Simone. Your whole future is waiting. You just have to choose what you want it to look like. That night, back in the penthouse, Simone stood on the terrace and watched the city lights. Her phone buzzed with another message from Jerome, but she didn't even look at it. Daniel and his team were handling everything. The criminal investigation was underway. The divorce was proceeding. She was free. Not just legally free, though that was coming. Financially free. Free to choose, free to build, free to become whoever she wanted to be. Jerome had tried to break her. He tried to make her small and dependent and grateful for scraps. Instead, he'd lost everything. And she'd discovered she'd never been small at all. She'd just been sleeping. And now she was wide awake. 3 days after being served with divorce papers, Jerome tried a different approach. He showed up at Mitchell Enterprises. Simone was in a meeting with the architecture team, reviewing designs for another development project, when Helen's voice came through the intercom. Simone, I'm sorry to interrupt. Your husband is in the lobby demanding to see you. Security is asking how you'd like them to proceed. The entire room went silent. Simone felt everyone's eyes on her, felt the familiar panic rising in her chest. Jerome was here. In her father's building. In her space. Ms. Mitchell? Helen prompted gently. Simone took a breath, remembering Daniel's advice. You control the narrative now. You decide who has access to you. Tell security he's not welcome here, Simone said, her voice steadier than she felt. If he refuses to leave, they should call the police. Understood. Richard Okoye, the young executive who'd been presenting the designs, gave her an approving nod. Good call. Men like that only understand firm boundaries. The meeting continued, but Simone couldn't concentrate. She kept waiting for Jerome to appear, to force his way in, to make a scene. But nothing happened. After 15 minutes, Helen's voice came through again. He's gone. Security escorted him to the street. They've added his photo to the banned list. He won't be able to get past the lobby again. That night, the text messages intensified. You can't hide from me forever. I know where you are. Fancy building. Think you're better than me now? Your father can't protect you from the truth about who you really are. I gave you 6 years of my life. You owe me. We can still work this out. Just talk to me. You're making a huge mistake. Fine. If that's how you want to play it, I'll see you in court. Simone showed the messages to Daniel the next morning. He read through them with a clinical eye. He's spiraling, Daniel observed. Losing control. This is good for our case. It shows instability and harassment. But I'm concerned about escalation. What do you mean? Sometimes when abusers realize they've truly lost control, they escalate to more dangerous behavior. I'm going to recommend you have security for a while. Just as a precaution. Within hours, Simone had a security detail. Patrick wasn't just her driver anymore. He was trained in executive protection. There was also Gabrielle, a former police detective who served as her close protection officer. Simone felt ridiculous having bodyguards, but her father insisted. You're worth $500 million, he pointed out. You should have had security all along. This isn't just about Jerome, though he's certainly a concern. This is about protecting our family's assets. While Jerome spiraled, Simone's education continued. She spent her days learning the business, meeting with managers, reviewing projects, and slowly beginning to understand the empire her parents had built. She also started to discover herself again. The accounting skills she'd let rust came back quickly. The business instincts she'd never had the chance to develop began to emerge. In meetings, she found herself asking questions that impressed her father's executives, spotting potential problems before they became serious, suggesting solutions that hadn't occurred to others. You have your mother's strategic mind, her father told her one afternoon. She could look at a project and immediately see the angles everyone else missed. You're doing the same thing. Patricia Wong continued her investigation into the money trail, and what she found was damning. Jerome hadn't just stolen from Simone's account. He'd opened credit cards in her name, taken out loans using her forged signature, and built up nearly $200,000 in debt that Simone knew nothing about. He was living far beyond his actual means, Patricia explained, showing Simone the evidence. His salary at the consulting firm was $90,000 a year, but he was spending like he made 10 times that much. All on your credit and your money. How did I not see any of this? He controlled all the mail, all the accounts. You said yourself he checked everything you did. He was very careful to hide the financial trail from you. Patricia paused. Simone, this is important. Did he ever make you sign documents without reading them? Simone thought back. All the time. He'd say they were just household stuff, bills, routine paperwork. He'd get irritated if I tried to read everything first, say I didn't trust him. That's how he got your signature on these loan documents. We can prove they were obtained through fraud and manipulation. The credit companies will have to write them off, and Jerome will be responsible for the debt. How much are we talking about in total? Patricia pulled up a spreadsheet. The original $800,000 he stole. The $200,000 in fraudulent debt. Plus interest and penalties. We're seeking restitution of just over $1 million. $1 million. Jerome had stolen $1 million from her while making her beg for grocery money. The investigation into Britney Lawson also yielded interesting results. Thomas discovered that Jerome had bought her a car worth $70,000, using money from Simone's account. He'd rented her a luxury apartment, 18 months at $3,500 a month. He'd taken her on trips to Cancun, Las Vegas, and Miami, all charged to credit cards in Simone's name. In total, he spent approximately $300,000 on his mistress, Thomas reported. All of it traced back to funds that belonged to you. That's going to make for a very compelling case. Meanwhile, Britney's own life was falling apart. Her husband, a successful dentist named Carlos, filed for divorce and sued Jerome for alienation of affection, a claim that could cost Jerome hundreds of thousands more. Britney was also fired from the consulting firm where both she and Jerome had worked, for violating ethics policies about workplace relationships. Simone heard all of this with a strange detachment. These people who'd hurt her so badly were destroying themselves, and she didn't have to do anything but stand back and watch. Do you want to know what they're saying about you? Thomas asked one day. Jerome's been talking to mutual friends, spreading stories. What kind of stories? That you're mentally unstable. That you abandoned him without cause. That your father is a controlling tyrant who manipulated you away from your marriage. That you were never happy. but wouldn't admit it. Thomas's expression was sympathetic. It's all lies, of course, but some people believe him. Let them, Simone said simply. Anyone who knows me really knows me will see through it. And anyone who believes Jerome without asking my side isn't someone I need in my life. Her father overheard this exchange and smiled. That's exactly right. You can't control what people say about you, Simone. You can only control how you respond, or don't respond. As the weeks passed, Simone started to build a new routine. Mornings were for learning the business. Meetings, reviews, site visits. Afternoons were often spent with her father, not talking about work but rebuilding their relationship. They had dinner together several times a week, talking about her mother, about the past, about everything they'd missed in 5 years of silence. I'm sorry I wasn't there more when Mom was sick, her father said one evening. I buried myself in work because I didn't know how to handle losing her. I failed both of you. You didn't fail, Dad. You coped the only way you knew how. And I should have understood that instead of cutting you off completely. We both made mistakes. But we're here now. That's what matters. Simone also started therapy. Daniel had recommended it, and after some resistance, she'd agreed. Dr. Sarah Chin was a specialist in trauma and recovery from abusive relationships, and she helped Simone start to unpack 6 years of psychological manipulation. You keep saying you should have known better, should have seen the signs, Dr. Chin observed during their third session. But abuse doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, calculated. Abusers are experts at making their victims feel responsible for the abuse. I just feel so stupid. Intelligence has nothing to do with it. Some of the smartest people in the world end up in abusive relationships. The question isn't why you didn't leave sooner. The question is, now that you're out, what do you want to build? That question stayed with Simone. What did she want to build? She started finding answers. She wanted to help other women who'd been where she was. She wanted to use her resources to make a difference. She wanted to prove that surviving abuse made her stronger, not weaker. One evening, she presented an idea to her father. What if we created a foundation, she suggested, to help women escape financial abuse? Provide them with legal resources, financial education, emergency housing. Everything I wished I'd had. Her father's eyes lit up. Your mother always wanted to do something like that. She came from nothing, built herself up. She never forgot what it was like to be vulnerable. Then let's do it. In her name. The Elizabeth Mitchell Foundation for Financial Independence. I think that's a wonderful idea, her father said softly. And I think you should run it. Within weeks, the foundation was being established. Simone threw herself into the planning, determining mission and values, hiring staff, establishing programs. It gave her a sense of purpose beyond just recovering from Jerome. Meanwhile, the legal case against Jerome moved forward. The divorce was contentious. He was fighting for half of everything, claiming he'd contributed equally to the marriage. His lawyer was aggressive but outmatched. Daniel and his team had evidence, resources, and the law on their side. The criminal investigation was proceeding as well. The district attorney had assembled a case for wire fraud, identity theft, and forgery. Jerome was looking at potentially 5 to 10 years in prison if convicted. Simone didn't celebrate any of this. She just felt tired and ready for it to be over. 2 months after that day on her knees, Simone was someone completely different. Stronger. More confident. More aware of her own worth. She'd stopped flinching when her phone buzzed. She'd stopped looking over her shoulder for Jerome. She'd stopped apologizing for taking up space. She was Simone Mitchell, not Jerome Palmer's wife. She was a businesswoman, a philanthropist in the making, a survivor. And she was done being anyone's victim. The storm Jerome had started was about to become his destruction. And Simone was going to weather it perfectly. Because she'd never been weak. She'd just forgotten her own strength. Now she remembered. The courtroom was smaller than Simone expected. She'd imagined something grand and imposing like in movies. Instead, it was a standard municipal courtroom with fluorescent lighting and worn wooden benches. But the people inside made it significant. Jerome sat at the defendant's table with his court-appointed attorney. He couldn't afford a private lawyer anymore, not with his accounts frozen and his credit destroyed. He looked terrible. Thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, wearing a suit that was rumpled and didn't fit quite right. Simone sat at the plaintiff's table with Daniel and Patricia, flanked by her father in the gallery behind her. She wore a simple navy blue dress and minimal jewelry, looking composed and professional. She'd learned that appearances mattered in court. This wasn't the criminal trial, that would come later. This was the first hearing for the divorce, where both sides would present their initial arguments. Jerome's lawyer, a harried-looking man named Philip Stevens, stood first. Your Honor, my client seeks an equitable division of marital assets. Mr. Palmer was a devoted husband for 6 years, supporting his wife's choice to be a homemaker. He's entitled to fair compensation for his contributions to the marriage. Daniel stood smoothly. Your Honor, the defendant's characterization of this marriage is fiction. We will present evidence that Mr. Palmer systematically stole over $1 million from Ms. Mitchell through fraud, forgery, and identity theft. Far from supporting his wife, he was actively robbing her while isolating her from family and financial resources. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Carol Hampton, looked between them. These are serious allegations, Mr. Reeves? Yes, Your Honor. We have extensive documentation. Daniel presented a folder to the court clerk. Bank records, forged signatures, expert testimony. The district attorney is pursuing criminal charges based on this same evidence. Judge Hampton reviewed the documents, her expression growing more severe. Mr. Stevens, is your client aware of the criminal investigation? Stevens shifted uncomfortably. Yes, Your Honor, but those charges are unproven. My client maintains his innocence. His innocence will be determined in criminal court, the judge said. But this evidence certainly impacts the divorce proceedings. Ms. Mitchell is clearly entitled to full recovery of stolen funds plus damages. I'm ordering all marital assets frozen pending full disclosure and valuation. Jerome jumped to his feet. That's not fair. She's the one who left. She abandoned our marriage. Mr. Palmer, sit down, Judge Hampton commanded sharply. You'll speak when spoken to. But she's lying about everything. Her father put her up to this. He never wanted us married. Mr. Palmer? The judge's voice cracked like a whip. Sit down now or I'll hold you in contempt. Stevens pulled Jerome back into his seat, whispering urgently. Jerome's face was red, his hands shaking. Simone watched him fall apart and felt nothing. Judge Hampton turned to Simone. Ms. Mitchell, do you have anything you'd like to say? Simone stood, her voice steady. Your Honor, I just want this to be over. I want my marriage dissolved and I want what was stolen from me returned. Nothing more. Very reasonable. Mr. Reeves, file a complete financial disclosure within 2 weeks. Mr. Stevens, your client needs to do the same. We'll reconvene in 30 days to review assets and determine division. And Mr. Palmer, she looked directly at Jerome, I strongly suggest you cooperate fully. The evidence I've seen here does not paint a favorable picture of your behavior. The hearing ended after less than an hour. As they filed out of the courtroom, Jerome tried to approach Simone in the hallway. Gabrielle, her security officer, immediately stepped between them. Simone, please, Jerome said desperately. Can we just talk? 5 minutes. Just you and me. No, Simone said simply. You owe me that much. After everything we've been through. I owe you nothing, Simone interrupted, her voice calm but firm. You made sure of that when you stole from me and cheated on me. We have nothing to discuss. This is insane. You're destroying my life over one mistake. One mistake. Patricia stepped forward, her voice cold. You committed fraud 72 times over 6 years. You forged your wife's signature on dozens of documents. You opened fraudulent accounts. You stole over $1 million. Which one of those is the one mistake you're referring to? Jerome's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Before he could respond, a woman's voice cut through the hallway. Jerome. Everyone turned. Britney hurried toward them, wearing 2 high heels and too bright makeup. I've been trying to call you. Carlos served me with papers. He's suing you for $500,000. You said you'd handle this. Jerome's face went pale. Not here, Britney. Yes, here. You promised me. Ms. Lawson, Daniel said pleasantly, I'd be careful about what you say in this courthouse. Anything you admit could be used in multiple legal proceedings. Britney stopped short, seeming to realize she was surrounded by lawyers. Her eyes landed on Simone, and something ugly crossed her face. This is all your fault, she spat. You couldn't just let him go quietly. You had to make a scene, bring in lawyers, ruin everything. I ruined everything? Simone felt a laugh bubble up, slightly hysterical. You slept with my husband in my house. You wore my clothes. You spent my money. But I'm the one who ruined things. He was going to leave you anyway. We were in love. You've been in love with 3 different married men in the last 5 years, Thomas interjected, appearing from nowhere with his investigator's notebook. All of them wealthy. All of them now divorced and broke. Interesting pattern. Britney's face flushed. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Because I have court records from Atlanta and Phoenix that tell a very different story. Thomas smiled pleasantly. I'm sure Carlos's lawyer would be very interested in those records. Britney looked between them, trapped. Jerome grabbed her arm. Let's go. No, wait. But Jerome was already pulling her down the hallway, nearly running to escape. Simone watched them go, watched them turn on each other in panic, and still felt nothing. Well, Daniel said with satisfaction, that went better than expected. In the car ride back to Mitchell Enterprises, Simone was quiet. Her father sat beside her, not pushing her to talk. Finally she said, I thought I'd feel something. Seeing him like that, so desperate. I thought I'd feel satisfaction or anger or something. What do you feel? Nothing. It's like watching strangers. Like that man has nothing to do with me anymore. That's healthy, her father said. It means you're truly moving past it. The opposite of love isn't hate, Simone. It's indifference. Is that what this is? I think so. You're indifferent to Jerome because he's become irrelevant to your life. He can't hurt you anymore. He has no power over you. He's just a problem to be solved, and your legal team is solving it. Simone considered this. He was right. Jerome wasn't her husband anymore, not in any way that mattered. He was just a defendant in a lawsuit. A criminal being investigated. A stranger who'd temporarily been part of her life. There's something else, her father continued carefully. The media has started picking up the story. Billionaire's daughter escapes abusive marriage. That kind of thing. Daniel's team is handling it, but you should be prepared for attention. What kind of attention? Interview requests. Photographers. People wanting to hear your story. Simone's stomach twisted. I don't want to be a story. I know. And you don't have to be. We can keep this as private as possible. But some exposure might be inevitable, given your position and the criminal case. That night, Simone Googled herself for the first time in years. The results were eye-opening. Mitchell heiress files fraud charges against husband. Real estate mogul's daughter emerges after years of isolation. Simone Mitchell, from financial abuse to Fortune 500. The articles were mostly sympathetic, painting her as a victim who'd escaped and reclaimed her power. But there were also comments, hundreds of them, from people who didn't know her at all. Why did she stay so long if she's so rich? This is clearly about money, not abuse. Rich people problems. She probably cheated and is making up the abuse story. Simone closed the laptop feeling sick. This was what her life had become, public property, open for judgment from strangers. Her phone rang. An unknown number. Simone almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello? Simone Mitchell? A professional female voice. This is Rachel Torres from WCN News. I was hoping to discuss an interview opportunity. Not interested, Simone said immediately. I understand this is difficult, but your story could help so many women who are experiencing. My story is private. Thank you for your interest, but no. She hung up and immediately blocked the number. Within minutes, 3 more calls came. All reporters. All wanting her story. Daniel's team released a statement on her behalf the next day. Ms. Mitchell appreciates the public's interest but requests privacy during this difficult time. She will not be granting interviews or making public statements. She asks that the media respect her family's need for space as they navigate these legal proceedings. Thank you for your understanding. It didn't stop the attention, but it slowed it. More importantly, it established her position. She wouldn't be performing her trauma for public consumption. The criminal investigation moved forward quickly. The district attorney assigned a senior prosecutor, Linda Ramirez, who specialized in white-collar crime. She met with Simone personally to explain the process. We have an exceptionally strong case, Linda explained. The evidence is clear, the paper trail is extensive, and your testimony will be compelling. But I need you to understand what you're signing up for. A trial is public. Jerome's defense attorney will try to discredit you. They'll bring up your marriage, your relationship with your father, anything they can use to create doubt. I understand, Simone said. Do you? Because they're going to paint you as a spoiled rich girl who wanted revenge on her husband. They're going to suggest you knew about the money all along. They're going to make this ugly. Simone met Linda's eyes steadily. Let them. I know the truth. I have the evidence. And I'm not backing down. Linda smiled. Good. That's what I needed to hear. We go to trial in 6 months. Between now and then, prepare yourself mentally. This is going to be hard. But Simone was already hard. Jerome had tried to break her, and instead, he'd forged her into something stronger than he'd ever expected. The first strike had been made. The divorce was underway. The criminal charges were filed. Jerome's life was unraveling. And Simone was just getting started. The text came from an unknown number 3 weeks after the courthouse confrontation. He's losing it. You need to be careful. B. Simone showed it to Gabrielle, her security officer, who frowned at the screen. B? As in Britney? I think so. Want me to trace it? No. But screenshot it and send it to Daniel. If she's warning me, that means Jerome's behavior is concerning even to her. Gabrielle nodded grimly. I'll increase your security detail. And we need to vary your routes, avoid patterns. Simone had thought the security was overkill. Now she wasn't so sure. The warning proved prescient. 2 days later, Jerome showed up outside her building at 6 in the morning. The doorman, Gregory, called Gabrielle immediately, and by the time Simone was alerted, Jerome had already been escorted off the property by building security. But not before he'd made a scene, shouting about his rights, about how Simone couldn't hide from him, about how he'd made her and could destroy her just as easily. Gregory showed Simone the security footage. Jerome looked wild, unshaven, wearing wrinkled clothes, gesturing frantically as he yelled at the building's glass doors. This man is unstable, Gregory said quietly. Ms. Mitchell, I've worked security for 20 years. I've seen this kind of behavior before. It escalates. What do you recommend? We've already added his photo to every security station in the building. I've briefed all staff. If he's seen anywhere near the property, we call the police immediately. But you should also consider a restraining order. Daniel agreed. Within a week, Simone had a temporary restraining order requiring Jerome to stay at least 500 feet away from her home, and Mitchell Enterprises. Violating it would mean immediate arrest. The order seemed to enrage him further. His lawyer, Stevens, withdrew from the case, citing irreconcilable differences with the client. No other lawyer would take him on. His behavior had become too erratic, his case too clearly doomed. Jerome was forced to represent himself in the divorce proceedings. It went as well as anyone could expect. At the next hearing, he submitted handwritten motions full of spelling errors and rambling accusations. He claimed Simone had orchestrated a conspiracy with her father to steal his future. He demanded half of her inheritance as compensation for emotional damages. Judge Hampton was not impressed. Mr. Palmer, nothing you've submitted here has any legal merit. You're not entitled to property your wife inherited from her family. You're not entitled to damages when you're the one who committed fraud. And these accusations of conspiracy are baseless and offensive. But she lied to me. Jerome shouted, half rising from his chair. She never told me she was rich. She let me think. What Ms. Mitchell chose to disclose about her family's wealth was her decision, the judge interrupted. You married her under the assumption she had no money, correct? Yes. Then you can't claim you were entitled to money you didn't know existed. You can't have it both ways, Mr. Palmer. Jerome's face reddened. This is completely unfair. You're all against me because she's rich and I'm not. No, Mr. Palmer. We're against you because you committed multiple felonies against your wife. This court deals in evidence and law, not your feelings of persecution. Judge Hampton looked at Daniel. Mr. Reeves, I'm ready to move forward with asset division. Present your proposal. Daniel stood smoothly. Thank you, Your Honor. Given Mr. Palmer's theft and fraud, Ms. Mitchell is seeking full recovery of all stolen funds plus interest, totaling $1.2 million. She's also seeking full ownership of the marital home, which was purchased with funds traced back to her accounts. Mr. Palmer would receive no assets from the marriage and would be responsible for all debts he incurred, fraudulent or otherwise. That's robbery. Jerome exploded. She gets everything and I get nothing? How is that fair? It's fair because you stole from her, Judge Hampton said flatly. The law is quite clear about this, Mr. Palmer. When one spouse commits theft against the other, the victim's spouse is entitled to full restitution and damages. You're lucky Ms. Mitchell isn't seeking additional punitive damages, which she would likely win. I won't accept this. You don't have a choice. This is my ruling. Ms. Mitchell receives full restitution, full ownership of all marital assets, and Mr. Palmer receives nothing. The marriage is dissolved effective immediately. She slammed her gavel. We're done here. Jerome didn't move. He sat at the defendant's table, staring at nothing, his face completely blank. For a moment, Simone almost felt sorry for him. Then she remembered kneeling on the carpet, begging. The feeling passed. As they left the courtroom, reporters swarmed. Simone kept her head down while Gabrielle and Patrick cleared a path. Daniel made a brief statement. Ms. Mitchell is satisfied with the court's decision and looks forward to moving past this difficult chapter of her life. She asks for privacy and has no further comment. They got Simone into the car before the reporters could ask questions. As Patrick pulled away from the curb, Simone saw Jerome emerge from the courthouse, immediately surrounded by cameras and microphones. "Should we watch?" her father asked gently from beside her. "No. I don't care what he has to say." But that night, clips were all over the news. Jerome ranting on the courthouse steps about conspiracy and injustice. Jerome claiming Simone had seduced him just to ruin him. Jerome threatening to appeal, to fight, to never stop until he got justice. "You look crazy." The media portrayed him as crazy. Public opinion, which had been somewhat divided, swung sharply against him. Meanwhile, Britney Lawson's life had imploded completely. Her husband Carlos had won his alienation of affection lawsuit, and she owed Jerome, who had nothing, $500,000. She'd lost her job, her home, and her reputation. Thomas's investigation revealed she'd been contacting other wealthy men on dating apps, already looking for her next mark. But her court records were now public, and any background check would reveal her history. She tried to contact Simone once, a desperate email that somehow got past the filters. "I know you have no reason to help me, but I'm desperate. Carlos is going to take everything. I made mistakes, I know that, but I don't deserve to lose everything. You're rich, you don't understand what it's like to have nothing. Please, can we talk?" Patricia showed Simone the email with raised eyebrows. "How do you want to respond?" "Delete it," Simone said immediately. "Block the address. I'm not interested in her sob story. She's probably going to keep trying. Then keep blocking her. I meant what I said in court. I owe her nothing. She made her choices. Now she lives with them." The criminal trial date was set for 4 months away. Linda Ramirez continued to build the case, which was becoming more extensive as investigators uncovered additional fraud. "He didn't just steal from you," Linda explained during a prep session. "He also falsified tax returns, committed wire fraud across state lines, and engaged in identity theft. Each count carries a potential sentence. We're looking at 15 to 20 years total if convicted on all charges." "Will he take a plea deal?" "He's been offered one. 5 years in exchange for a guilty plea and full restitution. His public defender is urging him to take it, but he's refusing. He insists on going to trial, claims he can prove his innocence." "Can he?" Linda laughed. "Not a chance. The evidence is overwhelming. He's going to trial because he's delusional, not because he has a case." While the legal proceedings ground forward, Simone's new life took shape. The Elizabeth Mitchell Foundation officially launched with a gala event that raised $2 million in its first night. Simone gave a brief speech, her voice shaking but clear. "My mother taught me that true strength isn't about having power, it's about empowering others. This foundation exists to help women find their financial independence, their voice, their strength. Because no woman should ever have to kneel and beg for what's rightfully hers." The applause was thunderous. Simone saw her father in the front row, tears streaming down his face with pride. The foundation's first programs launched within weeks. Legal clinics for women seeking divorces, financial literacy workshops, emergency housing partnerships, career training and job placement services. Women started coming forward with their stories. Stories like Simone's: systematic abuse, financial control, isolation. Each one made Simone more determined to help, to create resources she wished she'd had. She hired a staff of 12, all specialists in their fields. The foundation occupied 3 floors of office space in downtown, donated by Mitchell Enterprises. They helped 73 women in the first month alone. "You're doing something incredible here," Dr. Chin told Simone during one of their therapy sessions. "You're taking your trauma and transforming it into purpose. It doesn't feel incredible. It feels necessary. That's what makes it powerful. You're not doing this for recognition. You're doing it because you genuinely want to help." Simone also began taking a more active role at Mitchell Enterprises. She attended board meetings, contributed to strategic planning, and started overseeing the completion of her mother's final development project. "You have a real talent for this," Richard told her after a particularly successful presentation to investors. "You're a natural leader." "I'm still learning. We're all still learning. But you've got instincts that can't be taught. Trust them." 4 months after the divorce was finalized, Simone's life looked completely different. She had purpose, passion, and power. She had rebuilt her relationship with her father. She had created something meaningful with the foundation. Jerome had nothing. He'd lost his marriage, his home, his reputation, and soon he'd lose his freedom. And Simone had made peace with that. She hadn't destroyed him, he'd destroyed himself. She just refused to go down with him. The unraveling was complete. The criminal trial was approaching. And Simone was ready to testify, to tell her truth, to finally close this chapter for good. Because she was no longer Jerome Palmer's victim. She was Simone Mitchell, survivor, philanthropist, businesswoman. And she was just getting started. 6 months after her divorce, Simone stood at the groundbreaking ceremony for the Elizabeth Mitchell Center for Women's Financial Independence. The building would house all the foundation's services under one roof: legal clinics, counseling services, job training facilities, and temporary housing for women fleeing financial abuse. Her father stood beside her, holding a gilded shovel. The press was there, cameras rolling, capturing the moment. "This center represents hope," Simone told the assembled crowd. "Hope for women who think they have no options. Hope for women who've been told they're worthless. Hope for women who just need someone to believe in them. My mother believed in the power of community, of lifting each other up. This center is her legacy, and I'm honored to carry it forward." The applause was genuine and warm. As Simone plunged her shovel into the ground for the symbolic first dig, she felt her mother's presence strongly. This was right. This was exactly what she was meant to do. After the ceremony, a young woman approached Simone hesitantly. She looked to be in her late 20s with nervous eyes and clutched hands. "Ms. Mitchell? I'm sorry to bother you, but I wanted to thank you. Your foundation helped me leave my husband 3 months ago. I had nothing, no job, no money, nowhere to go. The foundation gave me legal help, a place to stay, and job training. I start work next week as a paralegal assistant." Simone felt her throat tighten with emotion. "That's wonderful. What's your name?" "Teresa. Teresa Johnson. Teresa, you did the hard part. You made the decision to leave. The foundation just gave you tools. Your success is yours. But I wouldn't have had the courage without knowing someone else had been through it and survived. Your story gave me hope." After Teresa walked away, Simone's father put an arm around her shoulders. "You're changing lives, baby girl. Real lives, real people. It doesn't feel like enough. There are so many women still trapped. You can't save everyone, but you're saving some. That matters." The foundation continued to grow. By the 8-month mark, they'd helped over 300 women. Stories of transformation poured in. Women who'd left abusive situations rebuilt their finances, started careers, regained independence. Simone hired more staff, expanded services, opened satellite offices in 3 other cities. Mitchell Enterprises provided initial funding, but donations from other sources started flowing in as word spread about the foundation's work. Simone also discovered she enjoyed the business side of Mitchell Enterprises more than she'd expected. Working alongside her father and the executive team, she learned about real estate development, investment strategies, market analysis, and long-term planning. "You're a natural at this," Richard told her during a strategy meeting. "You see patterns others miss, you ask the right questions, and you're not afraid to make tough decisions. I'm still figuring it out. Aren't we all? But you're doing it well." Her father started giving her more responsibility. She led the completion of her mother's development project, negotiating with contractors, solving problems, staying on budget and on schedule. When it opened, a beautiful mixed-use community with affordable housing, green spaces, and local businesses, Simone felt a deep sense of accomplishment. "Your mother would be so proud," her father said at the ribbon-cutting ceremony. "This was her vision, but you brought it to life." The criminal trial against Jerome loomed on the calendar. As the date approached, Linda Ramirez prepared Simone for testimony. "Defense is going to try to rattle you," Linda warned. "They'll suggest you're lying about the abuse, that you're just a vindictive ex-wife, that you're wealthy so it doesn't matter if money was stolen. How are you going to handle that?" "By telling the truth calmly and clearly," Simone replied. "I'm not going to get emotional or defensive. I'm just going to state facts." "Good. Remember, you're a witness, not on trial. Answer the questions directly, don't volunteer information, and if you need a break, ask for one." 2 weeks before the trial, Jerome tried one last desperate move. His current public defender filed a motion asking Simone to drop the charges in exchange for Jerome repaying the stolen money over time. Linda called Simone immediately. "What do you want to do? Can he actually repay it? He has no assets, no job, no prospects." "No. It's a fantasy. He's trying to avoid prison." "Then no. The charges stand." He needs to face consequences for what he did. You're sure? The trial will be difficult. I'm sure. He made his choices. Now he faces the results. Jerome's public defender withdrew the motion. The trial would proceed. During this time, Simone had been so focused on work and legal proceedings that she hadn't paid much attention to her personal life. She'd gone to therapy, spent time with her father, built the foundation, but she hadn't dated, hadn't socialized much, hadn't really thought about romance. Then she met Andre. It happened at a construction site for a new Mitchell Enterprises project. Simone was there reviewing progress when a man in a hard hat approached her with blueprints. Ms. Mitchell? I'm Andre Washington, the lead architect. I wanted to discuss some modifications to the south wing design. He stopped mid-sentence, and Simone looked up from her tablet to find him staring at her with an expression of stunned appreciation. Sorry, he said, recovering quickly. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Honestly? Someone older, sterner. Maybe wearing a power suit and barking orders. He smiled and it was warm and genuine. Instead I'm what? Beautiful, he said simply. Then his eyes widened. That was completely inappropriate. I apologize. That was unprofessional. Simone laughed, surprising herself. It's fine. And thank you. Now, what modifications did you want to discuss? They spent an hour going over the plans. Andre was brilliant. His designs were innovative but practical, beautiful but functional. He listened to Simone's concerns about cost and timeline, then offered solutions that addressed both. You really care about this project, Simone observed. I care about all my projects, but this one especially. Affordable housing that doesn't look cheap or feel temporary, that's what communities need. Your father gave me the freedom to design something that actually serves people, not just looks good in architectural magazines. His passion reminded Simone of herself, of the way she felt about the foundation. She found herself smiling more during that conversation than she had in months. At the end of the meeting, Andre hesitated. Would it be completely inappropriate if I asked you to dinner? To discuss the project further, of course. Of course, Simone said, still smiling. For the project. Absolutely. Nothing but professional interest in your insights on sustainable urban development. Nothing but that. They both laughed. Simone gave him her number. Their first dinner was at a small Italian restaurant, quiet and unpretentious. Andre showed up in jeans and a nice shirt, looking nervous. Full disclosure, he said as they sat down. I Googled you after our meeting. I know about your ex-husband, the trial, all of it. If that makes you uncomfortable, we can just keep this professional. Simone appreciated his honesty. It doesn't make me uncomfortable. It's public record. But I don't really want to talk about it tonight. Fair enough. What do you want to talk about? They talked about architecture, about the foundation, about his childhood in Georgia and hers in New York. They talked about books and movies and their favorite places to travel. The conversation flowed naturally, easily, without the awkwardness Simone had feared. Andre didn't know her as Jerome's wife or as a victim. He knew her as Simone Mitchell, businesswoman and philanthropist. He treated her as an equal, not as someone to be controlled or protected. Can I be honest about something? Andre asked as they walked to her car after dinner. Please. I'm intimidated by you. You're brilliant, successful, gorgeous, and you run a foundation that's changing lives. I'm just an architect who draws buildings. Just an architect? Simone stopped walking. Andre, you design homes for people who need them. You create spaces where communities can thrive. That's not just anything. That's important work. He looked at her with such warmth that Simone felt something stir in her chest, something she hadn't felt in years. Oh, interest. Possibility. Can I see you again? Andre asked. Yes, Simone said. I'd like that. They started dating slowly, carefully. Andre respected Simone's need to take things at her own pace. He never pushed, never demanded, never tried to control. He was just there. Supportive and kind and genuinely interested in her thoughts and feelings. Her father noticed the change in her. You're smiling more. Am I? Yes. It's good to see. Who is he? Andre Washington. The architect on the Riverside project. I know Andre. Good man. Talented. Honest. Her father studied her face. Does he make you happy? I think he might, Simone admitted. It's early but, yes. He makes me happy. Then I'm happy for you, baby girl. You deserve happiness. The foundation continued its rapid growth. Simone hired a director of operations so she could focus on strategy and fundraising rather than day-to-day management. She established partnerships with other organizations, created scholarship programs, and started planning expansion into more cities. At Mitchell Enterprises, she was officially named Vice President of Development, with her own office, staff, and projects to oversee. She was learning, growing, becoming the businesswoman her mother had always believed she could be. One evening, working late in her office, Simone looked around at the life she'd built. The foundation that helped hundreds of women. The career that challenged and fulfilled her. The relationship with her father, stronger than ever. The possibility of love with Andre. 6 months ago, she'd been on her knees, begging her abusive husband for scraps. Now she was building an empire of her own making. Jerome had tried to destroy her. Instead, he'd freed her to become who she was always meant to be. The trial was a week away. Simone was ready. She'd testify, tell her truth, and then move forward completely. Because she wasn't defined by what Jerome had done to her. She was defined by what she'd built from the ashes. And she was just getting started. The courthouse was packed for the opening day of the state versus Jerome Palmer. Simone sat in the front row of the gallery with her father on one side and Patricia on the other. Andre had offered to come, but she declined. She needed to do this without leaning on anyone. Jerome sat at the defendant's table in an ill-fitting suit, his court-appointed public defender looking resigned. He'd refused multiple plea deals, insisting he be vindicated at trial. Now he'd get his chance. Linda Ramirez stood for the prosecution, crisp and confident in a navy suit. Her opening statement was devastating. Members of the jury, over the next several days, you're going to hear about a man who systematically defrauded his wife out of more than $1 million. A man who forged her signature dozens of times. A man who opened fraudulent accounts, stole from her trust fund, and used her money to finance an affair with another woman. A man who, when confronted with his crimes, tried to force his victim to kneel and beg him for a pittance of what he'd stolen. The evidence in this case is overwhelming. Bank records, forged documents, expert testimony, and most importantly, the testimony of the victim herself, Simone Mitchell, who will tell you exactly how her husband abused her trust and her finances. When you hear all the evidence, you will have no doubt that Jerome Palmer is guilty of every charge against him. And you will deliver the justice that Ms. Mitchell deserves. Jerome's public defender, a exhausted-looking woman named Sarah Chin, no relation to Simone's therapist, gave a half-hearted opening statement about reasonable doubt and rush to judgment, but her heart clearly wasn't in it. The evidence was too strong. The prosecution's case took 3 days to present. Financial experts walked the jury through the paper trail. Every transfer, every forged signature, every fraudulent account. The testimony was dry but damning. Then came Britney. She'd been granted immunity in exchange for her testimony. She walked into the courtroom wearing a conservative dress and minimal makeup, trying to look sympathetic. It didn't work. Ms. Lawson, Linda began, how did you meet the defendant? At work. We were both consultants at Morrison & Associates. When did your relationship become intimate? About 8 months before his wife found out. Britney's voice was small. He said his marriage was over, that they were just going through the motions until divorce. Did he tell you he was stealing from his wife to fund your relationship? No. He said he had money from investments from his career. I didn't know. But you accepted expensive gifts? Trips? A car worth $70,000? Britney shifted uncomfortably. Yes. And you never questioned where this money came from, given that Mr. Palmer made $90,000 a year at a consulting firm? I trusted him. You trusted him. Just like his wife trusted him. Linda's voice was sharp. Ms. Lawson, did you ever go to the defendant's home? Yes. While his wife was there? Sometimes she was out. Running errands or at the library. Did you ever sleep in the marital bed? Britney's face flushed. Yes. Did you wear Ms. Mitchell's clothing? A few times. Jerome said she wouldn't mind. Ms. Mitchell has testified that she very much minded. In fact, she's testified that discovering you in her home, wearing her clothes, sleeping with her husband in her bed, was one of the most traumatic experiences of her life. Do you feel any remorse for that? Objection, Sarah Chin called weakly. Relevance. I'll allow it, Judge Hampton said. The witness may answer. Britney looked at Simone for the first time. I'm sorry. I didn't think about how it would affect her. I was selfish. It was too little, too late, but Simone appreciated the honesty. Britney continued her testimony, describing how Jerome had lavished her with gifts, taken her on trips, promised they'd be together once he divorced Simone. He said he'd get millions from the divorce, Britney testified. He said Simone's father was rich, that she'd been hiding money, that he deserved half of everything because he'd supported her all those years. So he knew about Ms. Mitchell's family wealth? Yes. He talked about it constantly. How unfair it was that she'd kept it secret, how he'd been cheated. This was crucial testimony. It proved Jerome had known about Simone's potential inheritance and had been planning to exploit it. After Britney, the prosecution called handwriting experts who confirmed the forged signatures. They called bank officials who testified about the unauthorized transfers. They called Simone's accountant who detailed the systematic theft. Then they called Simone. She'd prepared for this moment with Linda for weeks, but walking to the witness stand still made her heart race. She wore a simple gray dress, minimal jewelry, her hair pulled back. She wanted to look professional and credible, not emotional or vengeful. Linda started gently. Ms. Mitchell, can you tell the jury about your marriage to the defendant? Simone took a breath and began. She talked about meeting Jerome, the whirlwind courtship, her mother's death and the estrangement from her father. She explained how Jerome had isolated her, controlled the finances, made her dependent on him. Did you know about your inheritance while married to Mr. Palmer? No. I knew my father was successful, but I believed he'd cut me off when I got married against his wishes. I had no idea about the trust fund, the property holdings or my stake in Mitchell Enterprises. What was your financial situation during the marriage? I had no access to money except what Jerome gave me. I had to ask permission for any purchase over $20. He controlled all the accounts, paid all the bills, handled all financial decisions. Did you ever question this arrangement? Sometimes. But he said it was for my own good, that I didn't understand money, that he was protecting me from making mistakes. Let's talk about the day you discovered the affair. Can you describe what happened? Simone recounted that terrible day, finding the voice note, Jerome and Britney on the couch, being forced to her knees. Her voice shook slightly but she kept going. He wanted you to beg for a divorce settlement? Yes. He said I'd get $50,000 and nothing more. He made me kneel on the floor and demanded I beg him for it. Then what happened? My father called. I hadn't spoken to him in 5 years, but he'd been searching for me. He told me about my inheritance, about the money Jerome had been stealing. Everything changed in that moment. Linda walked her through the evidence. The forged signatures, the unauthorized transfers, the fraudulent accounts. Simone identified documents, confirmed dates, explained how she'd been systematically deceived. Then came cross-examination. Sarah Chin approached the stand with obvious reluctance. Ms. Mitchell, you claim you didn't know about your family's wealth? I didn't. But you'd grown up wealthy, correct? You'd lived a privileged life? Until my mother died, yes. So you understood the value of money, understood finances? I understood basic personal finance. I didn't know the extent of my family's holdings or that I'd been made an heir. Isn't it convenient that you suddenly remembered this inheritance right when your marriage was ending? I didn't remember it. My father told me. I had no idea. You expect this jury to believe that you lived with a man for 6 years, shared a home and a life with him, but never once mentioned that your father was a billionaire? I thought my father had disowned me. Jerome encouraged me to believe that. He isolated me from my family deliberately. Chen's questions continued, trying to paint Simone as a liar or a gold digger who'd set Jerome up. But Simone remained calm and consistent. Linda had prepared her well. Finally, Chen asked, Ms. Mitchell, isn't it true that you've benefited tremendously from these accusations? You've gotten sympathy, media attention, and you've built a foundation on the back of your victim narrative. Simone looked directly at the jury. I built a foundation to help other women escape the kind of abuse I experienced. If that's benefiting, then yes, I'm grateful for the opportunity. But I'd trade all of it to have those 6 years of my life back. To have never met Jerome Palmer. To have never been betrayed and stolen from by someone I trusted. She was excused after 2 hours on the stand. As she walked past the defendant's table, Jerome tried to catch her eye, but she looked straight ahead. The prosecution rested their case. The defense had almost nothing. No witnesses, no evidence, just Jerome's insistence that he'd been set up by Simone and her father. When Jerome took the stand in his own defense, it was a disaster. They planned this from the beginning, he insisted, his voice rising. Robert Mitchell never wanted us married. He used his money and power to turn my wife against me, to fabricate evidence, to destroy my life. Mr. Palmer, Sarah Chin said wearily, do you have any evidence of this conspiracy? I know what I know. They're rich, they're powerful, they can make evidence say anything. Did you or did you not forge your wife's signature on financial documents? Jerome hesitated. I might have signed her name a few times, but she knew about it. She gave me permission. Do you have that permission in writing? No, but did you or did you not transfer money from Ms. Mitchell's account to accounts in your name? That was our money. Marital money. The account was a trust fund established before your marriage. It was never marital property. Did you have authorization to access it? Jerome's face reddened. I was her husband. I had the right. That's not how the law works, Mr. Palmer. The cross-examination was brutal. Linda dismantled every claim Jerome made, confronted him with evidence he couldn't explain, exposed his lies methodically. By the time he left the stand, Jerome looked broken. The jury looked disgusted. Closing arguments the next day were anticlimactic. Linda summarized the evidence calmly and professionally. Sarah Chin made a half-hearted plea for reasonable doubt that convinced no one. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. We find the defendant guilty on all counts. Jerome's face went white. He slumped in his chair as Judge Hampton read out the verdicts: guilty of wire fraud, guilty of identity theft, guilty of forgery, guilty of grand theft. Sentencing would be in 2 weeks, but the outcome was clear. Jerome Palmer was going to prison. Simone felt a wave of relief so strong it nearly knocked her over. It was done. She testified, told her truth, and been believed. Justice had been served. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. Linda made a brief statement. Justice has been served today. Ms. Mitchell is grateful to the jury for seeing through the defendant's lies and delivering a fair verdict. She looks forward to continuing her healing and her work with the Elizabeth Mitchell Foundation. Simone said nothing. She didn't need to. The verdict spoke for itself. In the car, her father hugged her tightly. It's over, baby girl. It's finally over. It's over, Simone repeated, letting herself believe it. He can't hurt me anymore. That night, Andre came over with dinner and just held her while she cried. Not sad tears, but tears of relief and release. Years of tension, years of fear, all flowing out of her at once. You're so strong, Andre murmured into her hair. I don't feel strong. You are. You survived him. You rebuilt your life. You helped hundreds of other women. You testified in court and got justice. That's strength, Simone. Maybe he was right. Maybe she was strong. Maybe she'd been strong all along, just buried under Jerome's abuse and manipulation. 2 weeks later, Jerome was sentenced to 15 years in prison with possibility of parole after 10. Simone didn't attend the sentencing. She didn't need to. She was done with Jerome Palmer forever. The trial was over. Justice had been served. And Simone was finally, completely free to move forward. The nightmare was over. Her new life was just beginning. 8 months after the trial, Simone stood in the completed Elizabeth Mitchell Center for Women's Financial Independence. The building was beautiful, modern and welcoming, with bright spaces, comfortable furnishings, and every resource a woman escaping financial abuse could need. The grand opening was scheduled for tomorrow, but tonight was a private walkthrough with her father and the foundation staff. Your mother would be so proud, her father said, his voice thick with emotion. This is exactly what she dreamed of, a place where women could find real help, real hope. Simone squeezed his hand. We built it together, Dad. All of us. The center housed legal clinics staffed with pro bono lawyers, financial counseling services, job training facilities, temporary housing for 30 women and their children, and a childcare center so mothers could attend appointments and training without worrying about their kids. It had cost $20 million to build and would cost $3 million annually to operate. But donors had stepped up. The foundation's fundraising had exceeded all expectations. They had funding secured for the next 5 years. We've already got a waiting list for housing, the director of operations reported. Over 200 women have applied for our programs. We're going to change so many lives. The next morning's grand opening was covered by every major news outlet. Politicians gave speeches. Celebrities donated. Hundreds of people toured the facility and heard stories from women the foundation had already helped. Teresa Johnson, the young woman Simone had met months ago, was there with her employer, a law firm that had hired her as a paralegal assistant after the foundation's training program. I want to give back, Teresa told Simone. This place saved my life. I want to volunteer, help other women the way I was helped. We'd be honored to have you, Simone said warmly. The foundation had helped over 500 women now. 500 lives changed. 500 women freed from financial abuse. The numbers were staggering, but Simone knew they were just getting started. At Mitchell Enterprises, Simone had fully stepped into her role as Vice President of Development. She oversaw multiple projects now, managed teams of architects and engineers, and had earned the respect of everyone she worked with. "You've got the Mitchell gift," Richard told her after a particularly successful board meeting. "Your father can see the big picture. You can see both the big picture and all the tiny details. That's rare." She'd also started mentoring young women in the company, helping them navigate male-dominated spaces, encouraging them to speak up and claim their expertise. Her relationship with Andre had deepened slowly, carefully. He'd met her father, who approved wholeheartedly. They'd gone on trips together. Nothing fancy, just weekend getaways to quiet places where they could talk and be together without pressure. Andre never pushed for more than Simone was ready to give. He understood her need to rebuild trust, to take things slow. He was patient and kind and genuinely interested in her as a person, not as Robert Mitchell's daughter or a foundation founder or a survivor, though he was proud of all those things. One evening, 6 months into their relationship, Andre cooked dinner at his apartment, a cozy space filled with architectural drawings and books. "I need to tell you something," he said over dessert. Simone's stomach tightened. "Okay. I'm falling in love with you. Actually, I think I've been in love with you for months. And I know you might not be ready to hear that, and I don't need you to say it back, but I wanted to be honest about how I feel." Simone looked at this man who'd been so patient, so understanding, so genuinely good. "I think I'm falling in love with you too. It terrifies me, but I think I am." "Why does it terrify you?" "Because the last time I loved someone, he destroyed me. He took my trust and my money and my self-worth, and he crushed all of it." "What if?" "I'm not him," Andre interrupted gently. "I'm not Jerome. I'm never going to control you or manipulate you or make you feel small. I'm just going to love you and support you and be grateful every day that you chose to let me in." Simone felt tears sting her eyes. "How do you always know the right thing to say?" "I don't. I just say what I'm feeling and hope it's right." They moved forward together, building something real and healthy and based on mutual respect. Andre never tried to manage Simone's money or make decisions for her. He split bills fairly, respected her independence, and celebrated her successes without jealousy. He was simply the opposite of Jerome in every way that mattered. At therapy one afternoon, Dr. Chin smiled at Simone's update about her life. "You've done remarkable work, Simone. When I first met you, you couldn't imagine a future beyond your divorce. Now you've built a foundation, rebuilt your relationship with your father, found love, and become a leader in your field. That's transformation." "I still have bad days," Simone admitted. "Days when I doubt everything, when I feel like I'm one mistake away from disaster." "That's normal. Trauma doesn't disappear just because your life gets better. But you've developed tools to manage it, support systems to lean on, and perspective to understand it. That's all we can ask for." Simone received updates about Jerome occasionally through Linda Ramirez. He was in prison, would be there for years. He tried to appeal the conviction but failed. He'd written Simone several letters, which she'd returned unopened. She had no interest in his excuses, his apologies, or his attempts at manipulation. He was part of her past and she intended to keep him there. Britney Lawson had left the state, moving back to her hometown in Georgia. Her lawsuit settlement with Carlos had left her deeply in debt. She was working as a waitress, living with her mother, her schemes finally catching up with her. Simone felt no satisfaction in Britney's downfall, but she also felt no sympathy. Both Jerome and Britney had made their choices and would live with the consequences. 1 year after the trial, Simone's life had settled into a rhythm that felt right. She woke up in her penthouse, went to work at the Foundation or Mitchell Enterprises, spent evenings with Andre or her father, and went to bed feeling fulfilled. She'd also started speaking publicly about financial abuse. Not to rehash her story but to educate others about the warning signs, the systems that trap victims, the resources available to help. Her talks were powerful, drawing on her personal experience but focusing on practical information. She spoke at universities, corporate events, nonprofit conferences. Every time, women approached her afterward with their own stories, their own fears, their own need for help. The foundation opened satellite offices in 5 more cities. Each one followed the model of the original center, providing comprehensive services to women escaping financial abuse. They help thousands of women now, with plans to expand even further. "You've created a movement," her father told her one evening over dinner. "Not just a foundation but a real movement. Women across the country are talking about financial abuse in ways they never did before. That's because of you. It's because of all of us. The staff, the donors, the volunteers, the women who've trusted us with their stories. I'm just the face of it. You're more than that. You're the inspiration. You took your pain and turned it into purpose. That's powerful, Simone. She was also working on a book, a comprehensive guide to recognizing and escaping financial abuse. Not a memoir, though her story would be in it, but a practical resource for women who needed help. I want to reach women who might never come to our centers, she explained to her editor. Women in rural areas, women who can't access our services, women who just need to know they're not alone and there is a way out. The book was scheduled to release in 6 months. Pre-orders were already strong. Sitting in her office one afternoon, looking at the city skyline, Simone reflected on her journey. 2 years ago, she'd been on her knees, begging her abusive husband for scraps. She'd thought she had nothing, was nothing, could do nothing. Now she ran a foundation that changed lives. She held a senior position at one of the largest real estate companies in the country. She had a relationship built on respect and love. She had her father back. She had purpose, passion, and power. Jerome had tried to break her. Instead, he'd freed her to become who she was always meant to be. Andre knocked on her office door. "Hey, beautiful. You ready for dinner?" Simone smiled, that genuine smile that had become easier over the past year. "Absolutely. Let me grab my coat." As they left the building together, Andre took her hand naturally. "Happy?" "Yes," Simone said, surprised by how true it was. "I really am." The past was behind her. The future was ahead. And for the first time in years, Simone Mitchell was excited to see what came next. Because she wasn't a victim anymore. She was a survivor, a builder, a force for change. And she was just getting started. The annual Elizabeth Mitchell Foundation Gala had become the social event of the season. In its 3rd year, it drew celebrities, politicians, business leaders, and philanthropists from across the country. This year's gala would raise over $5 million for the foundation's expanding programs. Simone stood at the entrance of the grand ballroom watching guests arrive. She wore a stunning emerald gown that Andre had helped her pick out, her hair styled elegantly, her confidence evident in her posture and smile. "You look beautiful, baby girl," her father said, appearing at her side in his tuxedo. "Thanks, Dad. You clean up pretty well yourself. Your mother loved events like this. She'd be in her element tonight. She'd be critiquing the flower arrangements and adjusting the lighting," Simone said with a laugh. "Remember how particular she was?" "I do. She had a vision for everything." He paused. "She had a vision for you too. And you've exceeded it, Simone. You've exceeded every dream we had for you." Simone felt tears threaten but blinked them back. "Don't make me cry before the speeches." Andre joined them, looking handsome in his tuxedo. Over the past year and a half, he'd become part of the family. Her father had welcomed him completely, and Andre had proven himself worthy of that welcome through his consistent support and genuine care for Simone. The ballroom was spectacular. Ice sculptures, elegant floral arrangements, a live orchestra. But the real star of the night was the presentation showcasing the foundation's work. A video played showing women the foundation had helped. Teresa Johnson spoke about escaping her abusive marriage and rebuilding her life. Another woman, Patricia Barnes, talked about how the foundation's job training program had helped her start a career in IT. A third woman, Linda Torres, discussed the legal clinic that had helped her win full custody of her children and recover stolen assets. Their stories were powerful and moving. The room was silent except for occasional sniffles as guests were touched by the testimonies. Then Simone took the stage to speak. 3 years ago, I was on my knees in my own home, being forced to beg my husband for money that was rightfully mine. I thought I had nothing. I thought I was nothing. I thought I had no options, no power, no future. I was wrong. I had everything I needed, I just didn't know it yet. I had strength I hadn't discovered. I had family I thought I'd lost. I had resources I didn't know existed. And most importantly, I had the capacity to survive and to thrive. The Elizabeth Mitchell Foundation exists because I know what it's like to feel powerless. I know what it's like to be controlled, manipulated, and abused. I know what it's like to think there's no way out. But I also know what it's like to escape, to rebuild, to discover your own strength, to create a life beyond your wildest dreams. And I want every woman in a situation like I was to know that they can do the same. In 3 years, this foundation has helped over 2,000 women escape financial abuse. We've provided legal representation, financial counseling, job training, housing, and support. We've changed lives, saved lives, and empowered women to become who they were always meant to be. But we're not done. We're opening centers in 10 more cities next year. We're launching a national hotline. We're creating an online education platform. We're writing curriculum for schools about financial literacy and healthy relationships. We're building a movement. And we couldn't do any of it without your support. Thank you for believing in this mission. Thank you for helping us create a world where no woman has to beg for what's rightfully hers. Thank you for being part of this change." The applause was thunderous. Simone stepped off the stage feeling energized and purposeful. Later in the evening, during the cocktail hour, a woman approached Simone hesitantly. She looked to be in her 60s, well-dressed but with tired eyes. "Miss Mitchell? I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was hoping I could speak with you privately for just a moment." Something about the woman's face was familiar, but Simone couldn't place it. "Of course. Let's step over here." They moved to a quieter corner. The woman took a deep breath. "My name is Diane Palmer. I'm Jerome's mother." Simone went very still. She hadn't seen Jerome's mother since before the divorce. They'd never been close. Jerome had kept Simone isolated from his family too. "Mrs. Palmer, I didn't know you were in town. I came for the gala. I wanted to see what you've built, what you've accomplished." Diane's eyes filled with tears. "And I wanted to apologize." "You don't need to." "Yes, I do. I knew something was wrong in your marriage. I saw how Jerome controlled you, how he isolated you. I should have said something, should have helped you. But I told myself it wasn't my business, that you were adults, that I shouldn't interfere. I was wrong." Simone's throat tightened. "Mrs. Palmer, it wasn't your responsibility." "Maybe not. But I'm still sorry. I'm sorry for what my son did to you. I'm sorry for not being there when you needed help. I'm sorry for everything." "Thank you. I appreciate that." Diane hesitated. "I also wanted to ask. Jerome wrote to me from prison. He asked me to reach out to you to ask if you'd visit him or consider writing to him. He says he's changed, that prison has given him perspective." Simone felt a flash of anger, quickly controlled. "And what did you tell him?" "I told him I'd ask, but that I didn't expect you to agree. And honestly, Simone, I don't think you should. My son needs to face the consequences of his actions without expecting forgiveness from you." "You're right. I'm not interested in hearing his excuses or accepting his apologies. I'm not interested in visiting him or writing to him or having any contact with him at all. That part of my life is closed." "I understand. And I respect that." Diane paused. "I just wanted you to know that I'm proud of what you've done. Turning your pain into something that helps others, that takes real strength and grace. You're an impressive woman, Simone Mitchell." "Thank you, Mrs. Palmer. That means a lot." After Diane walked away, Andre appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. "Everything okay?" That looked intense. "That was Jerome's mother. She apologized and asked if I'd visit him in prison. And I said no. I'm done with that chapter of my life. I've moved on completely." Andre raised his glass. "To moving on." "To moving on," Simone echoed, clinking her glass against his. The rest of the evening was magical. The auction raised nearly $2 million. Donors committed to major gifts. Partnerships were formed with other organizations. The foundation's reach was expanding exponentially. As the gala wound down, Simone stood on the terrace with her father and Andre, looking out at the city lights. "Your mother would be so proud," her father said again. "Not just of the foundation but of who you've become. Strong, compassionate, purposeful. Exactly who she always knew you'd be. I wish she could be here to see it. She is here. In every woman you help, in every life you change. Her legacy lives on through this foundation and through you." Andre put his arm around Simone. "You know what's amazing? 3 years ago you thought you'd lost everything. Now you've built something that will outlast all of us. That will help women for generations. That's incredible." Simone leaned into him, feeling grateful and content. "I couldn't have done it without help. Dad, you gave me the resources and support to rebuild. Andre, you gave me love and patience while I healed. The foundation staff, the donors, the volunteers, they all made this possible. But you're the heart of it," her father insisted. "You're the one who turned tragedy into triumph. You're the one who decided to help others instead of just healing yourself. That was your choice, your vision." A year later, the foundation had centers in 20 cities across the country. The book Simone had written became a bestseller, with all proceeds going to the foundation. She'd been featured in major magazines, had given a TED Talk that went viral, had become a recognized leader in the movement against financial abuse. At Mitchell Enterprises, she'd been promoted to executive vice president. She was being groomed to eventually take over the company when her father retired. Her relationship with Andre had deepened into something solid and permanent. They'd moved in together, were talking about marriage, about building a future together. Jerome was still in prison and would be for many more years. Britney had faded into obscurity. Both of them had become irrelevant to Simone's life. footnotes in her story rather than defining chapters. Simone had also reconnected with some old friends she'd lost during her marriage. They'd welcomed her back warmly, apologizing for not pushing harder when they'd seen warning signs. Simone had forgiven them all. She understood now how abuse worked, how isolators manipulated everyone around them. One afternoon, Simone sat in her office at the foundation, reviewing applications for the latest round of housing assistance. Each application represented a woman in crisis, a woman who needed help, a woman who deserved a chance to rebuild. Teresa Johnson knocked on her door. She'd become a full-time employee of the foundation, working as a legal advocate. "Simone, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important." "Who is it?" She wouldn't give her name. "But she looks desperate." Simone nodded. "Send her in." A young woman entered, maybe 25 years old, with haunted eyes and nervous hands. She reminded Simone of herself 3 years ago, scared, trapped, hopeless. "Thank you for seeing me," the woman said. "I'm Lauren. Lauren Davis. I read your book and I need help. My husband controls all our money. I have to account for every penny. He checks my phone, my email, everything. I want to leave, but I have nowhere to go, no money, nothing." Simone stood and came around her desk. "Lauren, you're in the right place. We're going to help you. Can you tell me more about your situation?" As Lauren told her story, a story painfully similar to Simone's own, Simone felt the familiar fire of purpose and determination. This was why she'd built the foundation. This was why she'd turned her pain into action. So that women like Lauren, women like she'd been, would have somewhere to turn. "We're going to get you out," Simone promised. "We're going to get you safe, get you legal representation, help you start over. You're not alone anymore, Lauren. You have us." Lauren started crying, tears of relief, of hope, of finally being believed and supported. Simone held her while she cried, remembering the day her father had told her she wasn't alone, that he had her, that everything would be okay. Now she could be that person for others. Now she could offer the help she desperately needed. That evening, Simone told Andre about Lauren. Another woman saved. Another life changed. How many is that now? Officially? The foundation has helped over 3,000 women in 3 years. But I think the real number is higher. We've educated countless others through the book, the talks, the online resources. We've changed the conversation about financial abuse. "You've changed the conversation," Andre corrected. "You're the one who had the courage to speak up, to tell your story, to build something meaningful from your pain. I had help. You did. But you were the catalyst. Don't diminish that." Simone smiled. "Fine. I won't diminish it. I'll own it. I survived financial abuse, rebuilt my life, and created a foundation that's helping thousands of women do the same. I'm proud of that. You should be. I'm proud of you. Your father's proud of you. Everyone who knows your story is proud of you." Later that night, lying in bed with Andre asleep beside her, Simone reflected on her journey. From the woman on her knees to the woman she was now, strong, successful, purposeful, loved. Jerome had tried to destroy her. He'd thought he could make her small, keep her dependent, control her forever. Instead, he'd freed her to become who she was always meant to be. The day he forced her to kneel was the day her real life began. The day her father called was the day she started fighting back. And every day since had been a step forward, a step toward becoming the woman she was proud to be. She thought about all the women she'd helped, all the lives she'd changed. She thought about Lauren and Teresa and the thousands of others who'd found hope and help through the foundation. She thought about her father, their relationship stronger than ever. About Andre, who loved her for exactly who she was. About her mother's legacy, living on through the foundation and through Simone's work. Jerome had nothing now. He'd lost everything, his freedom, his reputation, his future. He'd destroyed himself through his own greed and cruelty. Simone had everything. Not just money and success, but purpose and love and joy. She had the satisfaction of knowing she was making a real difference in the world. 3 years ago, they'd forced her to kneel and beg. One call from her father had changed everything. Now, 3 years later, she stood tall. She'd built an empire of compassion and change. She transformed from victim to survivor to warrior for others. And she was just getting started. The best revenge, Simone had learned, wasn't destroying your enemies. It was building something so beautiful, so meaningful, so impactful that they became completely irrelevant. Jerome Palmer was irrelevant to her life now. Just a name in her past, a chapter that was closed. Simone Mitchell was writing new chapters now. Chapters of hope, of healing, of helping others find their own strength. And those chapters had no end in sight.